Mayor Adams is speaking at a Memorial Day ceremony at the Intrepid Sea Air and Space Museum. Let's go to it now.
We extend always a very special greeting to those military personnel and veterans who are here with us today. We salute you for your commitment to the security of our nation and for protecting the freedoms that we enjoy in this country every day. Welcome to all of you watching at home, whether you're in New York, across the country, around the globe. Thank you for making us a part of your Memorial Day. I am honored to present our special guests, and I do ask if you will hold your applause until they are all introduced. Command Chaplain, USS Bataan, Captain Wayne R. Hall. Vice Chairman of the Intrepid Museum, Mr. Mel Emerigue. Co-Chairman of the Intrepid Museum, Mr. Bruce Mosler. Commanding General of Marine Forces Command, Lieutenant General Michael Langley. Chief of Staff to the Supreme Allied Commander, Vice Admiral Guy Robinson. The Commander of U.S. Fleet Forces Command, Admiral Caudle. The 110th Mayor of the City of New York, the Honorable Eric Adams, and the 57th Governor of the State of New York, the Honorable Kathy Hochul. Ladies and gentlemen, please rise as our national colors are advanced by the color guard from USS Bataan, and please remain standing for both the performance of our national anthem by musician second class Holden Moyer and the Navy Band Northeast, and then the invocation delivered by Command Chaplain Hall. Present the colors.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
Post the colors. Command Chaplain Hall.
Good morning. Would you join me in prayer? Most gracious God, giver of life, we thank you for this beautiful, warm day that brings an end to an amazing return to Fleet Week in New York City. In a time when the news frequently focuses our eyes on those things in our world which divide us, it has indeed been a blessing to be able to gather together in the streets and establishments of this great city and to greet one another face to face and remember that those things which divide us can never overcome that which unites us. The fact that each of us is made in your image and that we enjoy freedom as citizens of this great nation through our precious Constitution. Thank you for giving us these incomparable gifts. Father, although we know that the gift of freedom comes from you, it does not come without a price. And so we ask that you would be with us as we close this week in solemn reverence, remembering those who paid the ultimate price for our freedom while wearing the cloth of our nation. We are often reminded of the true and timeless words of Jesus when he said, "Greater love has no one than this, that someone laid down his life for his friends." May our time of remembrance on this day honor their sacrifice. May it bring a measure of comfort to those here and across our nation who feel their loss in deeply personal ways. And may it fuel our unity until we can one day know that fullest of peace, which only comes from you. And it is in your holy name I pray. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you, Command Chaplain, for such an important and meaningful prayer. Please be seated. I am so pleased to recognize distinguished guests who have joined us this morning. And again, I do ask that you hold your applause. Commander of Navy Region Mid-Atlantic, who oversees all of the Fleet Week planning and execution, Rear Admiral Chip Rock. Commander, Coast Guard District 1, Rear Admiral John Mauger. Commissioner of the New York City Department of Veterans Affairs, James Hendon. And President of the Intrepid Former Crew Members Association, Mr. Stu Gelband. And a very special thank you to the Army Corps of Engineers, whose vessel, the Driftmaster, can be seen out here in the Hudson flying a large American flag in salute of our ceremony today. So on Memorial Day, we honor all those who made the ultimate sacrifice protecting our nation and our freedom. And we recognize how especially fitting it is to do what we do next to this legendary aircraft that we call Intrepid. Throughout Intrepid's history, 250 of its own sailors gave their lives aboard this ship and in the skies above. Some of those brave men who served with them are here with us today. So may I ask all of the former crew members of the Intrepid to please stand and be recognized. Intrepid in its time of active duty was remarkable, engaged in World War II, the Cold War, the Vietnam War, and the space race. It was decommissioned in 1974, became a museum in 1982, and was designated a National Historic Landmark in 1986. The ship continues to serve today. This August will mark 40 years since the museum opened its doors to the public, and for those 4 decades, Intrepid has served as the centerpiece of the Intrepid Sea, Air, and Space Museum, an entire complex, now a leading cultural institution in New York City dedicated to the intersection of history and innovation. In a typical year, more than 1 million visitors from around the world come through our doors to be inspired by our one-of-a-kind artifacts, the amazing innovation and technology behind those displays, and compelling stories of bravery, service, and sacrifice of the individuals who served on board. Education is at the heart of all that we do. Our programs, our exhibitions, they amplify the real experiences of those on the front lines of history and the stories behind the engineering marvels in our collection that were shaped by and in turn changed the course of world history. We utilize all these events and innovations in history as a springboard to meet today's needs and tomorrow's challenges. We reach more than 55,000 school children annually, the majority of whom are underserved, teaching STEM education programming. We provide sensory-sensitive programming for individuals with autism and cognitive disabilities, and we conduct accessible programming for those who are deaf and hard of hearing, blind and visually impaired, and for those who have dementia in their families. And in order to help break down barriers and make the museum accessible to all, we offer numerous opportunities to experience the museum free of charge. And for our cherished veterans and active duty military personnel, we deliver a myriad of impactful programs that provide a supportive museum experience for returning service members and veterans from all conflicts, particularly those with post-traumatic stress, with the aim of building community and easing the transition back home. And we conduct similar programs for the families of our veterans and active service members. So to our veterans, you have our promise, our word, that the Intrepid Museum will always be here for you as you have always been there for us. Allow me now to introduce a great military leader. He joined the Royal Navy in 1986 as a warfare officer. His seagoing career has been primarily spent in frigates and destroyers, serving as a bridge watchkeeping officer, navigator, and then principal warfare officer. He's been fortunate to command 3 warships, including commanding the Edinburgh during the combat phase of the Second Gulf War. From 2015 through 2016, he was the Deputy Commander of United Kingdom Maritime Forces, the Royal Navy's High Readiness Battle Staff. In his most recent command assignment, he was Deputy Commander at Naval Striking and Support Forces NATO, a deployable joint battle staff whose primary role is the integration of high-end U.S. maritime capabilities into NATO operations. He became Chief of Staff at Headquarters Supreme Allied Command Transformation in July of 2021. Please welcome Vice Admiral Guy Robinson.
Ms. Susan Marnoff-Sausner, President of the Intrepid Sea, Air and Space Museum, General Langley, Admiral Caudle, Mayor Adams, distinguished guests, dear veterans and families, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for inviting me today. I am deeply honored to join you for this Memorial Day commemoration. I stand here as a representative of all 30 NATO nations, toiling together to ensure the security of almost 1 billion people across North America and Europe. I also represent one of NATO's 2 strategic commands and the only one on US soil, namely Allied Command Transformation in Norfolk, Virginia. I'm delighted to be here, surrounded by so much history at the Intrepid Sea, Air and Space Museum in its 40th anniversary. This ship could tell us of its exciting times, evading kamikaze attacks in World War II, working alongside NATO allies in the Cold War, or fishing astronauts out of the sea. Or to name but one of its many aircraft, the whispered tales of the A-12 and its reconnaissance mission. And finally, as I glance wistfully over at Concorde, I will share with you as a frequent traveler to Europe my hope that the days of supersonic travel across the Atlantic will hopefully not long remain a historical memory. But seriously, this institution, by honoring the men and women who served in the armed forces, their sacrifices and those of their families, also plays a vital role in educating children and the public about history and innovation. This innovative and educational mission is something that connects our 2 organizations. NATO has entrusted our command with what we call defense transformation, our mission to ensure that collectively, as an alliance of 30 member nations, we stand ready to meet the challenges of today and of tomorrow, despite the ever-changing character of war. 100 years ago on this day, the Lincoln Memorial was officially dedicated, celebrating a man whose life, death, and words are so closely intertwined with Memorial Day. We acknowledge today the extraordinary sacrifices of those who have died to preserve our freedoms and our values, to guard against the amnesia of future generations, or to quote President Franklin Roosevelt, those who have long enjoyed such privileges as we enjoy, forget in time that men have died to win them. To those who attempted to dismiss the importance of remembering the lessons of history, I say look to the east, where one nation is trying to deny another its independence and even its own history. This is why I also pay tribute to the incredible efforts of the Ukrainian armed forces and the unwavering patriotism and courage of the Ukrainian people and their leaders who have inspired so many across the world. The war in Ukraine is proof that freedom cannot be taken for granted and highlights the importance of cooperation, partnership, and determination so that together we can preserve our security and shared values. This is why the NATO men and women working on US soil stand with the American nation to reflect, remember, and honor the men and women of the Air Force, Army, Navy, Marine Corps, Coast Guard, and Merchant Marine who made the ultimate sacrifice defending this great country, its security interests, and the ideals on which it was built. Memorial Day is an opportunity for all of us, your allies, to pay our respects to those who died serving your nation and our alliance, and acknowledge the immense debt we owe them, their families, and those they left behind. This is the day we pay homage to all those who served in the military and did not come home. In 1863, standing on the field at Gettysburg, Lincoln reminded us that through their deeds, the dead of battle have spoken more eloquently for themselves than any of the living ever could. But he also stressed that we can only honor them by rededicating ourselves to the cause for which they gave their last full measure of devotion. And this is what we, members of NATO's Strategic Command in the USA, are trying to do. We make sure the Allies continue to have the best warfighters in the world, equipped, trained, and led by the finest men and women our societies produce, to ensure we can continue as history's greatest and most successful military alliance. Of course, we understand, as guests of your great nation, that today is primarily a day of solemn contemplation and an acknowledgement that freedom has a price. I cannot therefore praise the commitment of our military forces without thinking of those who have sacrificed so much in all theatres of operations for our countries and the alliance. In the wake of September 11, NATO invoked Article 5 of the Washington Treaty for the first and only time in history. And as allies, we engaged together in Afghanistan to ensure that no terrorist attack on Allied soil would ever be planned from that country. So I pay homage to all the men and women from our nations, our partners and friends who contributed to our peace, particularly those who shed their blood, risked their health and lives for our freedom and the security of each and every one of us. Let's honor those who served and those who continue to serve. Thank you.
Admiral Robinson, thank you so much. Thank you for those critical words and for your nation's unbreakable and important alliance. I am proud to introduce a dedicated, intrepid leader, a longtime vice chairman of the museum. He was chairman of one of Wall Street's premier firms for almost 20 years. He served for many years on the Defense Business Board of the Department of Defense and on the senior advisory boards of both the United States Southern Command and European Command. He's recently been serving as an advisor to many four-star admirals with respect to their transitions from the military to the private sector upon retirement. He's a recipient of the Exceptional Public Service Medal, among the highest civilian awards of the Secretary of Defense. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Mr. Mel Emerigue.
Memorial Day is our annual holiday for remembering those who have died while serving their country as members of our armed forces. We are truly blessed today to have as our Memorial Day speaker, alongside Intrepid, Admiral Caudle, the current commander of United States Fleet Forces Command, which is one of the largest components of the entire United States Navy, the most powerful and largest naval force in the history of the world. A few years ago, we began having an important representative of one of our allied naval forces as a guest on Memorial Day. We started with the Minister of Defense of Colombia, followed by the head of the Canadian Navy, and then Deputy Supreme Allied Commander Transformation of NATO from Germany. Admiral Robinson, we're delighted to add you to that distinguished list. How appropriate this time of the central importance of NATO to have you as our allied participant in our ceremony. Thank you very much for joining us today. National security concerns obviously preoccupy every citizen of the United States now. The situation in Ukraine, as Admiral Robinson mentioned, and with Russia, heightened anxiety to a level not seen since September 11th. Adding aggressive activity by China to that, and the usual issues with Iran and North Korea, make our military as important now as it has been at any time in our history. Intrepid is, besides Grant's Tomb, the only major military installation in the capital of the world, New York City. Memorial Day is our most solemn day, commemorating as it does those who have made the ultimate sacrifice in defending our country. It's therefore inspiring to have as our speaker on this Memorial Day, alongside this great ship Intrepid, a leader like Admiral Caudle. He's truly extraordinary. A native of Winston-Salem, North Carolina, he has 2 master's degrees in physics, a PhD in organizational leadership, and is the current commander of United States Fleet Forces Command based in Norfolk, Virginia. In that role, he mans, trains, and equips over 125 ships, 1,000 aircraft, and more than 100,000 active duty servicemen and government employees. As commander of fleet forces, he's responsible for providing combat-ready forces to our numbered fleets and combatant commanders around the globe in support of United States national security interests. He is also responsible for the Navy's participation in Fleet Week and has been terrifically helpful in that capacity to Intrepid. Admiral Caudle is a submariner by background. In that capacity, he's held numerous command positions on submarines, as well as commanding the entire U.S. submarine force and NATO's Allied Submarine Command. He is regarded as one of the most imaginative and accomplished officers in the Navy. Admiral Caudle, we've had no Fleet Week for too long. COVID robbed us of that. We didn't have Kearsarge or Iwo Jima or New York to inspire us. But Fleet Week is definitely back. How appropriate to have thousands of sailors and Marines and Bataan here to lead us in our Day of Remembrance in New York. thank you for your extremely enthusiastic leadership role in making that happen. Batan's job is to deliver Marines and sailors to the battle from sea to the battle on shore. We're also honored to have with us today as our senior U.S. Marine Corps representative, Lieutenant General Michael Langley, the current United States Marine Corps Forces Commander. And a little secret, we invited General Langley, if he can do it, next Memorial Day to be our keynote speaker, succeeding Admiral Caudle. Putting you on the spot, General. Our Memorial Day ceremony involves remembrance of all of our soldiers, sailors, Marines, airmen, cuttermen, and women who have given their lives so we may be free. We have had a tradition of Memorial Day speakers from all branches of the military. Obviously, being alongside Intrepid and with Bataan right next to us, it is particularly powerful to have one of the nation's leading naval officers as our speaker this year to lead us in our remembrance. It is with great honor and respect that I present to you the Commander of United States Fleet Forces, Admiral Caudle.
Well, good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Thanks, Mel, for the introduction. If it wasn't so hot, you would have seen me blush. I mean, my goodness. And I can tell you for a fact that, you know, while I'm great friends with General Mike Langley over here, I don't know that I'm going to give this spot up so easily. I may have a say in that. But and if it is warm out today, and for the folks that, you know, maybe don't have the perspective from the cameras, it's because we're getting a lee here, but sitting in between about a combined 150,000 tons of U.S. Navy hardware. So let's give it up. Got the Intrepid, Bataan. So what an incredible backdrop. You know, about 157 years ago, in the aftermath of America's bloodiest war, the Civil War, a war not only for the future course, but for the very soul of the nation, families and communities grieved the loss of more than 620,000 military deaths. As the years passed, Americans far and wide had begun holding springtime tributes to the fallen, decorating their graves with flowers and reciting prayers. And then in 1868, John Logan, the Commander-in-Chief of the Grand Army of the Republic, an organization of veterans of the Union Army, chose May 30th as Decoration Day, a nationwide day of remembrance of the fallen. On that first Decoration Day, back in 1868, President James Garfield made a speech at Arlington National Cemetery, and he began with these words: "I am oppressed with a sense of the impropriety of uttering words on this occasion. If silence is ever golden, it must be here, beside the graves of 15,000 men whose lives were more significant than speech, whose death was a poem, the music of which can never be sung." With each conflict since, whether upon these shores or on distant battlefields, this day has come to memorialize all of those who have selflessly laid their lives down upon the altar of freedom. And so it's a great honor and privilege for me to represent all 6 branches of our armed forces on Memorial Day here at the Intrepid Museum. On behalf of our nation's service members, I want to thank each and every one of you and all of those around the world whose staunch dedication, tireless devotion, and endless support provide us the stable foundation we as American warfighters need to defend this great nation. So to Ms. Susan Marinoff-Zalzner, Mr. Bruce Mosler, and Mr. Mel Emerigue, and the entire Intrepid Museum team, thank you for inviting me to speak and participate in today's ceremony. And thank you for your unwavering efforts in honoring our nation's heroes and inspiring generations of Americans. Also to Mayor Adams and the governor, to the patriotic people of New York City and the entire state, thank you for the extraordinary hospitality during Fleet Week and for so graciously sharing this wonderful city with the men and women who wear the cloth of our nation. It is because of people like you and cities like this that our Army, Navy, Air Force, Marine Corps, Space Force, and Coast Guard are the most formidable integrated combat team the world has ever known. This week's Fleet Week was an overwhelming success. It was absolutely great to once again see our Navy and Coast Guard ships docked in the harbor again after a 2-year pandemic hiatus. And without question, I know the over 2,500 sailors, Marine, and Coast Guardmen loved every minute of it, and I know I did too. It's fantastic. I truly hope that each of you had a chance to talk with some of our service members this week, because if you did, I'm sure you came to understand the same sentiment our senior Department of Defense leaders know in Washington, that our service members are our greatest competitive advantage against the malevolent forces around the world, those who are intent on disrupting the peace and prosperity that our forebears fought so hard to secure. Since our nation's founding, our people have fought together as one in defense of America, to preserve the American dream, to safeguard the promise of a better future, and to uphold the proclamation of we the people. Those who have donned the cloth of our nation have hailed not only from North America, but from all corners of the world and from every walk of life, each with different backgrounds and experiences, and together each personify what is best about our country, our resolve and inability to ever give up. It is important to understand that service members are not simply born, they are forged by their commitment of service through sacrifice, forged by the brotherhood and sisterhoods and the bonds that are created, forged by the values and legacy of their services. That legacy is defined by a long list of Americans whose courage, heroism, and sacrifice upheld the highest tradition of what our nation stands for, and forged by the unbreakable bonds of partnership, peace, and prosperity around the world in defense of the American people and our partners and allies. And it is for them that today Americans everywhere take time to reflect upon the honorable service and heroic self-sacrifice of the countless sons and daughters, brothers and sisters, parents, families, and friends who proudly wore our nation's cloth and paid the ultimate price. I see the best in our nation each and every day in our service members, in every service member's spouse, in every military dependent and family member. Their support is what underwrites the excellence of our armed forces. And as my wife Donna has told me so frequently throughout my career, those who wait serve too. This day allows us to reflect on the countless family members who have waited endless days for the return of their loved ones, only to learn in despair, as Abraham Lincoln described in Gettysburg, that they had given the last full measure of devotion. And so in closing, I would like to leave you with a few more words from President Lincoln, which I believe gets to the heart and soul of Memorial Day. Honor to the soldier and to the sailor everywhere who bravely bears his country's calls. Honor to the citizen who cares for his brother in this field and who serves as best as he can the same cause. Honor to him, only less to him, who braves for the common good the storms of heaven and the storms of battle. May God bless all of those who have laid down their lives in the service of this great nation, and to their families who shared so selflessly their loved ones with us all. May God bless our soldiers, sailors, airmen, Marines, guardsmen, guardians, and veterans everywhere. And may God bless this wonderful nation and all of those who we serve to protect. Thank you.
Sir, thank you so much. Thank you for your service to our nation. We are so very grateful. Ladies and gentlemen, it is now my pleasure to introduce the co-chairman of the Intrepid Museum. He is currently chairman of global brokerage of Cushman & Wakefield and helped to launch and now serves as chairman of Cushman & Wakefield's own veterans hiring platform known as the C&W Military and Veterans Programs. He served as chairman of the Business Executives for National Security from 2011 through 2017, and today he still serves as chairman emeritus on its executive committee. He's the interim chair of Iraq and Afghanistan Veterans of America and serves among countless other civic and charitable organizations. Please welcome Mr. Bruce Mosler.
Thank you, Susan. Good morning. Is it not great to be back in person? Here we are. As Susan has already said, we are both proud and humbled to extend our gratitude and recognition to our very own Intrepid crew members, and in particular to those members of past crews who gave their life in service to our great nation. Ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests, members of the military, welcome to the Intrepid Sea, Air, and Space Museum on this most solemn occasion. Thank you, Admiral Caudle and Vice Admiral Robinson, for your powerful and poignant words. I am reminded on this solemn day of what Admiral Chester Nimitz said of the American sailors and Marines who fought on Iwo Jima. As you know, one of the hardest fought battles in American history. He said, uncommon valor was a common virtue. I am confident I speak for all of us here today in saying that on this sacred holiday, on these hallowed decks, which itself represents all the ships and service men and women who in times of danger to our nations and our people have displayed that uncommon valor, who have stepped forward and have said in our hour of need, send me, I will go, who have protected our shores, our people, our freedoms, and our nation, in particular, to be here among so many who have served and so many who are still serving today, it is an honor. We pause to remember the legacy of service and sacrifice because to be here is a stark reminder that freedom comes at a heavy cost. We owe you, the half of the 1% who have so generously stepped up over the years, a deep debt of gratitude. Last October, about 7 months ago, marked the 20th anniversary of the onset of military operations in Afghanistan in response to September 11th, a date that will live in infamy throughout this great city and indeed our nation. That conflict concluded last year as we exited the longest war, as I mentioned, in our nation's history. Thousands of brave American men and women, along with our Afghan allies and coalition troops, served in these 20 years of conflict. Many of them served for as long as the soldiers of the greatest generation who fought during World War II. These veterans indeed represent the next great generation, and they, like all our veterans, have paid a tremendous price in their fight for our country, and they are due our nation's eternal thanks. Great as their service has been, I'm here to tell you that a mere thank you for your service is not enough. We can and we must do more. We must provide the best of health care, and we must also recognize the tremendous benefit that our veterans can provide to the civilian workforce. The skills learned, the disciplines acquired, the leadership demonstrated in military service make our veterans invaluable to the building and rebuilding of our nation's infrastructure. I have seen this firsthand over and over through Cushman & Wakefield's Military and Veterans Program. We are blessed to employ thousands of veterans, and not, I hasten to add, for charitable purposes, but rather because they make for a better organization. And by the way, they typically outperform their peers, and they lead by example. Bottom line, ladies and gentlemen, it is a formula for success for your business. So I'm here to say, employ our vets. And finally, though today is typically reserved for recognizing America's fallen, we cannot fail to recognize others fighting to preserve their own freedoms. The Ukraine people have shown us an inspirational level of defiance and resolve in the face of what we all thought at first were perhaps insurmountable odds. This reminds us of the fragility of democracy and the clear existence of new existential threats throughout the world. Indeed, we are at the precipice of a new Cold War. But we must stand beside those in that country who are fighting for their homes, their families, and against unbridled aggression for the sake of all of democracy. And now, ladies and gentlemen, I am privileged to introduce a great New Yorker and a great American. Eric Adams has shown a lifetime commitment to New York. He grew up and went to public schools here. He joined the NYPD intending not only to serve his community, but also to improve how the department interacts with all minorities, and eventually, through hard work and dedication, he rose to the rank of captain. He championed the city's interests as a state senator in Albany and as president of our largest borough in Brooklyn. He has demonstrated tremendous leadership time and again in the face of COVID. Today, as our mayor, he is committed to ensuring the safety of all New Yorkers so that our families, businesses, schools, and frankly, all communities can succeed and grow. And he understands that our city must have safe streets to flourish as the center and capital of technology, finance, healthcare, media, and the arts. He has pursued that goal in 20 years in the NYPD, and he supports it now as our leader. We thank him for his great commitment. He is the hardest working mayor in this nation, bar none. Ladies and gentlemen, it is my privilege to introduce the 110th mayor of the city of New York, and a man I'm honored to call my friend, Eric Adams.
Thank you so much, Bruce, and I'm honored to be here with the governor of the state of New York, Kathy Hochul, and the assignment today is to take a moment as we go home and read through the national anthem. We often hear the words in a chorus, but each word is so significant. And yes, soldiers are forged, but also patriotism is forged. Our young people don't know the rich history of the men and women who allow us to sit under the tree of freedom because they watered that tree with their blood. They don't know what it is to understand just how special this country is. Yes, we have challenges, and I like to believe that we are a symbol of what the Intrepid is to the entire fleet. Under attack during Pearl Harbor by sea and air, continued to forge ahead regardless of the difficulties that it was facing, continued to show the resiliency of what our Navy and our 5 other armed forces represent. We too are that. This is a Pearl Harbor moment. As our national anthem states, bomb burst in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. We're not only talking about physical bombs, we're talking about the bombs of uncertainty, of crisis, of turmoil, of uprising, the bombs that can have an impact on how we feel. Just as Pearl Harbor was a significant moment, so too was September 11th, a few miles from here as we watch our center of trade collapse. We reflect on 9/11 and the number of lives we lost, but I reflect on 9/12. We got up. New Yorkers continue to build. We were the symbol and the epicenter of a terrorist act that could have crippled any other nation, but not us. We continue to thrive. And now we're faced with a new challenge called COVID. It's not terrorism, but it brought terror. We lost loved ones and family members to the uncertainty if they will ever return from a hospital. Our economy took a devastating dive. Many people lost their homes and businesses. The uncertainty hovered over our entire nation. But just as then, we are here now. We will survive. We will survive not only who we have that represent us during foreign wars, but during local uprising. The men and women of the military, law enforcement communities across this country. The prerequisite to our prosperity is public safety and justice. They go together. It is a symbol of who we are as a country. And I told the visitors to Gracie Mansion during Fleet Week, I want to leave with you. Something special about this country. It's the only country on the globe where dream is attached to our name. There's no German dream. There's no French dream. There's no Polish dream. But darn it, there's an American dream. This is where dreams are made and built. And we have to always protect that dream. We protect that dream with the men and women who defend this soil. And I know, I've visited other places. I've seen other governments. I've seen other militaries. And I'm clear every morning, there's no place I would rather be than the United States of America. And so I pledge my allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, for which we stand, one nation, under God, indivisible. That's who we are. That's who we will always be. I thank the men and women of the military for protecting that dream, and we must protect it as Americans. God bless New York. God bless America. God bless you. Thank you very much.
Mayor Adams, no words. That was just brilliant. Thank you for your everything. It is my pleasure to introduce our next speaker. She began her career in public service on her local town board before serving as Erie County Clerk, and then as a member of Congress for New York's 26th Congressional District. More recently, she served in statewide office as Lieutenant Governor. While in Congress, she served on the House Armed Forces and Homeland Security Committees, traveling to Afghanistan to confer with military leaders and meet with active duty men and women. Her focus in Congress was job creation and bridging the skills gap by bringing together business and academia and creating opportunities for returning veterans. It is a privilege. Please welcome with me the 57th and first female governor of New York State, the Honorable Kathy Hochul.
Good morning. I have a feeling that I'm standing between you and cooler environment. But as I stand here, not wanting to miss this moment to show my gratitude to true leaders, and I'm reflecting on the speakers we heard here, the high-ranking officials in our military, our great mayor, Eric Adams. Some people noticed they hadn't seen a governor and the mayor on the same stage for this event. So we're here to make history, continue to make history through collaboration. Because when you join the military, you put your ego aside. You put your political persuasion aside. You put your geographic influences aside. And you become one powerful unit where the #1 objective is to protect your beloved homeland. I believe that all of us as Americans, and certainly those in public office, have that same capacity in our hearts to learn from the examples of our military that goes way back to the early days of our founding fathers. I reflect on the conflict in Ukraine and think about the courage of the early patriots who stood up against domination from Great Britain. It was a fight that no one thought they could win, but they did. That is part of our DNA as Americans, that we share the love of that and the influence of that to our brothers and sisters who are fighting oppression in Ukraine today. And I stand here as someone joined by my husband. You didn't know that you also had New York's first gentleman. Okay, my husband, Bill Hochul. But I want to point him out because he is the son of a World War II veteran. And on our den wall is a replica of the map that after he landed at Omaha Beach, the path he followed to liberate people throughout Europe. That is something I see every single day when I'm back home in Buffalo. But when I'm also back home in Buffalo, I don't have the Intrepid. I don't have the scale of these incredible ships and their history of resilience and fighting back. But there are two ships as part of the Buffalo and Naval Park. One is the Little Rock. One is the Sullivan. The Sullivan is named after 5 brothers who lost their lives fighting for our country at the same time. Can you imagine the pain of that mother getting that message that she lost her 5 beloved sons? I'll never forget that as I go by there frequently. Nor can we ever forget the sacrifice of those, some who put on a uniform voluntarily, as our armed forces are today, and others at a time when people are questioning whether or not they should serve, and I'm referring to our Vietnam-era veterans. And if you served during Vietnam, I want to see your hands right now, because we had too many who did not come home to the welcome they deserved. And that is a mark on our history, a negative mark, because I had 4 uncles serving during Vietnam. And we watched the evening news wondering if they'd be shown being transported in a helicopter. They all made it home, but so many of their friends and others did not. But what the biggest stain on our history is that they were told when they came back home from Vietnam, do not wear your uniform as you come through the airport in San Francisco, because someone may attack you and threaten you and harass you for putting on that uniform. My friends, that will never happen in this nation again. We learn from that mistake. We honor those who are willing to serve, because they all step up with the expectation and their family's expectation they'll come back home. But today we reflect on those who didn't, and what that sacrifice meant to the building of a young nation into the powerhouse that it is today. We are the example for the rest of the world. And at the very foundation is our respect for rule of law, but also international law, where we will protect our rights at home and abroad and stand firm against terrorism abroad, and as we've seen most recently in my hometown, domestic terrorism. We stand ready to fight. It's in our DNA as New Yorkers. We always embrace a good fight if it's for a worthy cause. And the protection of freedom, the foundation of our very country, will always be that worthy fight. I just left the 9/11 site just minutes ago before I came here. It was the 20th anniversary of the last remains being removed from 260 days where people came together exposing themselves to toxins and contaminants. And so the last 20 years we've been burying people, not who died on 9/11, but those who succumbed days and years afterward. That is the courage that we all know as New Yorkers. And I'm asking everyone in this city and this state to call on that courage, to call on that resiliency, to call on that DNA as we show the rest of the world what we are made of. We stand up for our rights, we stand up for our freedoms, we stand up against tyranny. And lastly, I had the privilege of serving on not only Homeland Security, but the Armed Services Committee. I wanted those committee assignments. They took me to Bahrain. I had a chance to meet the leaders of the 5th Fleet. I saw the dedication as people were scouring day after day for threats that could come through the Mediterranean Sea. I went to 5 battlefields in Afghanistan. I sat in a tent in Kandahar, another one in Helmand Province. I sat with New Yorkers, and I asked them their biggest fear, and this will never leave me. I assumed it was the fear of the Taliban, just off in the distant hills, that they could lose their lives. Their biggest fear was coming back to New York and not having a job and ending up homeless like too many did during that conflict. My friends, we will always embrace those who served and those who have special needs when they come back, especially those who have PTSD, something we need to talk about more and understand that you do 1, 2, 3, 4 tours of duty, you will not be the same person. We are here to help you heal. We're here to help you get those jobs. We're here to help with education, supportive housing, because you may not have lost your life, but you may have lost a little piece of something. And it's our responsibility as Americans and New Yorkers to help put that back together. That is our commitment on this Memorial Day 2022, and I welcome you all back to this beautiful reminder of why we love this country so much. Thank you.
Governor, thank you so much. It's a privilege to have you here. Thank you for your service to our state and to our veterans and active military. Ladies and gentlemen, we will now continue with the solemn tradition of this museum. We will lay 4 memorial wreaths on the Hudson River in memory of the brave men and women, heroes, who made the ultimate sacrifice for our country. The first wreath honors United States military personnel lost in current conflicts. The second honors United States military personnel lost in all conflicts throughout our history. The third honors intrepid crew members who we have lost, and the fourth honors those lost from allied nations. As I call upon those to lay the wreaths who have left the stage, may I ask all others to please remain in your seats. For United States military personnel lost in current conflicts, I ask the Honorable Kathy Hochul, Governor of New York State, the Honorable Eric Adams, Mayor, City of New York, Bruce Mosler, Co-Chairman, Intrepid Museum. Please lay the wreaths. For United States military personnel lost in all other conflicts in our history, I ask Admiral Caudle, USN, Commander, United States Fleet Forces Command, and Commissioner James Hendon, New York City Department of Veteran Services, to please lay the wreaths. For crew members of Intrepid, I ask Stu Gelban, President, Intrepid Former Crew Members Association, Aaron Resnick, First Vice President, Intrepid Former Crew Members Association, and Rear Admiral Chip Rock, Commander of Navy Region Mid-Atlantic. Please lay the wreath. For military personnel of allied nations, I ask Vice Admiral Guy Robinson, Chief of Staff to the Supreme Allied Commander, Lieutenant General Michael Langley, USMC Commanding General of Marine Forces Command, and Mel Emerigue, Intrepid Museum Trustee, to please lay the wreath. Ladies and gentlemen, behind me, in front of you, is an American flag, the symbol of our nation and our freedom. This flag stretches 100 feet. I ask the flag detail of our United States Armed Forces, please take their positions and open this flag. We will raise the flag in honor of our fallen comrades throughout the world. After the flag unfurling, a detail from Joint Task Force Empire Shield will fire 3 volleys, a traditional military salute, followed by the sounding of taps by the Navy Band Northeast and FA-18 Navy fighter aircraft from squadrons VFA-32, VFA-83, and VFA-131, who will fly over Intrepid in missing man formation in salute of our fallen. Veterans and active duty military personnel, please join us around the flag. Ladies and gentlemen, today and every day, let us remember those who have fallen, and to those who are here with us and who are serving or have served, we are ever so grateful. Thank you all for being here today. God bless you, and God bless America.